Professor Wolff, you were on with us in a different segment talking about the G7 and their enormous failure when it comes to coming up with something that will help us in our environmental crisis. I'd like to talk with you today in this segment about the intersection of capitalism and the environment, and specifically the degradation we're seeing today. I'd love to get your thoughts on whether the capitalist system will ever be forced to reckon with what it's wrought, or are we going to have some sort of clash of the titans? Will the market decide? The big companies starting to fight each other. For example, the insurance industry doesn't like climate change because they have to pay for it when things flood or get blown down. Talk a little bit about that and give us a sense of where we are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. So far, we have seen relatively little. Promises made, projections announced with great fanfare and so on, but relatively little in the way of action. And unfortunately, the G7 meeting just concluded among those rich and powerful countries made little progress. I think it's important to understand that, for example, if you have a global economic system in which places like China, India, and Brazil, just to pick three of them, play an enormous role, if you want to do something about the climate of this planet, you have to work with those countries. And you have to do it systematically. You can't be denouncing them and attacking them and rattling your sabers against them. And obviously, I'm particularly concerned here with what we're doing vis-a-vis China. If you want to come to an agreement without which you can't solve these problems, number one. And I don't see that happening, quite the contrary. Number two, you're quite right, Juliana. We are already seeing capitalists themselves falling apart, attacking each other. The insurance companies either want there to be some care taken because they can't cover what the climate may destroy, even though they have policies out there saying they will. They either want the climate to be dealt with, or they want laws passed that relieve them from the obligation of covering climate-related disasters, which should worry everybody listening to this program or watching it, because that means we're going to be out there without any recourse to help us through all of this. Mm-hmm. There's a great deal of effort by every capitalist I see to push this burden somewhere else, onto some other entity, the government, other corporations, the public. I've always found it extraordinary that I go out of my way to organize my garbage so that the glass and the plastic is I'm a tiny individual. Where are the big corporations taking the steps they ought to be taking? They want us to look up to them because they're big corporations, except when they need to do something that costs money, whereupon we're all in this together. No, we're not. We're not. You're not. And you've chosen very neatly to avoid your obligations. On the one hand, I was pleased to learn that one of the companies planning to run gas lines from Canada down through the United States stopped doing it. But in the same day, another one announced it was going to do it, go through again, Native American territory, renew that. And for what? For the fossil fuels we ought not to be dealing with. Here's another example of a failure. We have known for a long time that the private automobile is a lousy way to move human beings. Private automobiles cause, just to pick the United States, somewhere between 30 and 50,000 dead people every year, a catastrophe. Even many more that are injured. Even many more dollars that are wasted producing all these cars. And remember, most private vehicles sit most of the time in a driveway or a garage or parked on the street doing nothing. It is a very inefficient way. And automobiles are the number one polluter of the air, causing asthma and lung disease, cancers, and I could go on. We know what the answer is. Public transportation, mass transportation. Quality buses, trains, planes can get us around if we do. We're smart people. We could make that work. And then we wouldn't be killing each other on the street, and we wouldn't be polluting the air, anything like we're doing now. That's the solution. Are we doing it? No. Here's what we're doing. We're converting fossil fuel automobiles into electric automobiles, making Elon Musk the richest person after Jeff Bezos in the world. What? That's it? Well, that's profitable, you see. It's profitable to have us all replace our gas-fired car with an electric car. But that's not a solution to our problems. It's capitalism's profit motive that's governing this, not an awareness of the danger to our climate, of climate change, of global warming, all the things that happen when you burn fossil fuels.
Because electricity is still... Because the electric that goes into the electric car is still coming from a fossil fuel somewhere.
Right. And we wouldn't need anywhere near as much if we did mass transportation, which many countries, many cities already do. I live in New York City. Most of the people around me do not have a private car because there's no need. We have a very good public transportation system. Taxis, subways, buses, Uber, Lyft, all of it. We have a lot of ways of moving people around that do not involve the mass of everybody having a car.
Isn't one of the problems in other cities that weren't sort of like New York? They started with the public transportation a long time ago because they needed to get the poor people from downtown up to work on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, cleaning somebody's house. That's putting it a little simply, but that's pretty much what it was. Isn't everyone having their own car sort of a privatization of transportation?
Absolutely.
So the burden falls on the worker. And if the worker can't have a car, then the worker can't go to work, then the worker can't have food, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Look, if we were honest, we would talk to our people here in the United States and in every other country. If we went from a private car that we all have to a really clean, rapid, frequent, safe public transportation system, we would save X billion dollars a year in the steel we don't need, in the plastic we don't need, in the healthcare we don't need because we're not killing everybody's lungs with all of this pollution in the air. If we worked it out, and we can do all of that, we could then have a discussion. What are we going to do with the billions and billions of dollars we save? What kind of work can be given to the people? We don't need to work on the private car, whose labor can now be used to do something much more valuable to our society. Then, look, I'm a Democrat with a small d. I believe in letting people decide. You could have a private car, and then you don't get these things. Or you could have public transportation, and then you could get all these other things. Mm-hmm. The same, by the way, applies to many other things. Does everybody have their own building called your house? Or do you live in a collective apartment complex? Mm-hmm. I can show you in 10 minutes the enormously cheaper way of living. It's cheaper to heat your house. It's cheaper to maintain your building, everything. And more Americans are finding their way into the condo project or the garden apartments or the co-op operation. We have that here in New York. And it's much cheaper. And then you can use your wealth for other things that make your life valuable, and on and on and on. It boggles the mind that we hold on. And the reason we do is not because we like it better. That's dishonest. We don't have anybody telling us all of the benefits we could enjoy if we went to public transportation. Nobody's
Right, but
telling us that.
we have everybody telling you how that new Jeep is going to make you have
Absolutely.
sex or whatever. They're
Yes,
telling you how wonderful it is. Yes, we have a lot of
absolutely. You have the profit motive is leading people to tell you to do X because it's profitable instead of Y because there's nobody yet, at least, making profit off of it. So it gets all screwy and you make decisions that you shouldn't make because you don't have the information or the understanding. And the people who are making profit off what exists don't want you to. They
Right.
don't want to lose what is making them the richest people on this planet. So we're supposed to all be terribly excited that these are the advantages of the electric car over the gas-fired car. What's absent from the conversation is the alternative of a public transportation system that would give us all kinds of others. And then we could have a conversation and we could decide what mixture we might like. We don't have any of that. We don't have freedom of choice because a lot of these choices are constricted and constrained by a profit-driven system, which is why, for me, capitalism is over. We're done, and we need to go somewhere else.
Professor Wolff, why are we not seeing corporate? Why it seems like everyone knows the environment is in chaos and it's just going to get worse. I mean, every time you turn on any environmental reporting, it's the basic headline every single week is it's worse than we thought. You know, that's pretty much it. Which is, you know, just disturbing on so many levels. It seems to me that the capitalist and the corporate titans are making hay while the sun shines, grabbing up as much as they can. And I guess what? They're going to make a bunker and live through the fall of our planet. Like what? How is it that they can continue doing that instead of taking a left and, as you said, public transportation, organic farming, start doing the things that would be profitable for them in the future if they continue to, participate in the world?
Well, it's interesting the way you put it, Juliana, because I've been a historian all my life. I teach a lot of courses in history. If you look back on the empires of the past, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the British Empire, you kind of scratch your head and you say, couldn't they see it coming? How could they have kept doing the things that finally brought them down when those were going on for decades or even centuries leading up to the end for them? And the answer is, the people who sit at the top of a system are never in a very good position to see the rot at the bottom because they don't want to look there, and that's not where they spend their lives. The people at the top do, in fact, live in mansions. They locate their mansions far from the sources of pollution that they own and operate. And they make sure they have equipment and machines in their mansions to clean the air that they breathe. And they have a vacation house somewhere in the mountains where they enjoy the very nature that the rest of their business is destroying. So, yeah, they are blind. They are self-contained. We can't look to them to take us out. They're the winners in the system that exists. We need to be the winners in the system yet to come. And I think that's what people are slowly and painfully learning, with no thanks to those at the top, because they're lost. They're stuck in what has made them rich. I kind of understand it, but I think the lesson is don't look to them. They're the last ones that are going to figure this out.
They're mentally ill with individualism. But I think that collectivism, the environmental problem, is going to force collective. It's one thing that may force collectivism. Either that or it's going to be the Hunger Games.
Right.
I'm hoping for the better.
One of the words of collectivism that people find easier to live with is the word community. It's so ironic that Americans, for example, celebrate the family, celebrate the local community. And by that, they kind of mean a group of people that don't have a rigid hierarchy amongst themselves, in which there's a kind of general acceptance. We're different, but we're going to find the interesting thing in you and you and me, and we're going to work a way to help each other, etc., etc. That very community, whether it's 5 people or 50 people or 500 people, is what we want to see writ larger. And there's no reason why we can't do that. And if you call it community, maybe it won't scare people the way words like collectivity or socialism or any of the other scare words that have become scare words precisely because they threaten the power of the individuals who sit at the top. But remember, employers, the rich, are a tiny minority of the people. When you hear someone like an economist like me tell you that we have to understand that the business has to focus on and prioritize profits, or that profits, after all, are the bottom line, the profit system is what got us here. This is, if you pardon me, a lot of BS. The reason we're told to focus on profits is because it's the profits that the minority gets. The rest of us get wages and salaries. The profit goes to them. Of course, they want business to be focused on profit. But for us, that's a mistake. We're just as interested in the quality of our day, in the interactions we have with our fellow workers, in the health that we do or do not have in our workplace. Those are just as important to us as the profits of the enterprise. If we ran the enterprise, it would take care of all those objectives. It wouldn't, in a lopsided way, focus on profits, which are earned by a tiny minority. That's a misunderstanding of what an economic system is supposed to be.
Professor Wolff, again, thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for the work that you do. Please go find Professor Wolff at Democracy at Work on YouTube and watch Economic Update, the main show that you host once a week. And you have other content on there too, Ask Prof Wolff and a number of other things. Thank you so much again for being on our program. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Juliana. I'm glad to be here.